Hello, and welcome back to Writing with Witches, where a couple of witches sit and talk about writing in different locations thanks to technical difficulties, which you would think an expensive mic wouldn't have, but that's the way it is.
Yep.
I am one of the witches. My name is Leona Rubansky. I'm a debut author with my novel having just been released on April 15th of this year. And Fire Magic, the first book of the Deathgate trilogy. Please go find it, go read it, leave me a review, or, just read it. That's all I really need.
Read it. It's good. It's
Read
terrific.
it.
Read it.
My co-host is...
I am Nicole Autumn. I am the author of the completed Secret Society series. Yay.
Which we're all very thrilled about because...
Yes. It was a struggle. I was on the bus struggling, and now we're there. We're here. It's great.
So today we are going to be in different point of views when you're writing. But before we do that, we do have a few things of book news, do we not?
We do. So the first audio short story came out on May 4th, and that is Princess of Shadows, written and narrated by Leona. And the next one will be coming out June 1st, which is The Crimson Dagger. So if you didn't get around to reading our short stories for whatever reason, well, now you can listen to them on YouTube, on the Mythweaver Books YouTube channel. So clean your dishes and we'll read you a nice story.
There you go.
Yeah.
So.
Other than that, gonna start writing. Yay. Any book news for you?
Fae Touched. I'm on the final round of edits before I send it to my beta readers, which includes the lovely Nicole.
Yes.
And then that kind of starts the process for me of getting it out to people and getting feedback and reviews. And so we are still on track for a September release of Fae Touched. So if you liked Fire Magic and you're like, there needs to be more romance, go read Fae Touched.
Yes. Especially if you like cinnamon rolls.
Yes.
With an edge. He's got a little extra cinnamon.
A cinnamon roll who will protect you.
Yes. That's a good... Yes, that's good.
I'm a sucker for him.
He's a good one. I won't lie. He's a big guy, too. So all these ladies that like the 6'5" cinnamon rolls, go read it. When it comes out. It's not out yet, but you'll want to.
Oh, and we also do have more Fire Magic and Order Secret Society merch in the Mythweaver Books store. So go have fun with that. We have notebooks, we have clothing, we have hats, we're going to have prints, and we're going to be offering notepads and notebooks. I probably already said that. I don't remember. All kinds of stuff.
All kinds of goodies, which I'm sure there's always going to be more. And if you guys want something specific, let us know. It's not that hard to slap our stuff on some stuff.
Yeah, right.
And make something for you that you are wanting, because I'm pretty sure we would also want it, to be fair.
I'll tell you what, if you need a new gym bag, that Order gym bag is legit.
Yeah.
Just saying. That thing holds a lot of shit. And it's sturdy.
She is speaking from experience. She brought it on our Mythweavers retreat and packed that thing full.
I did.
Product testing.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So shall we dive into this point of view debate?
We should. And seeing as we both write in different points of view, I prefer first person. Leona prefers third person. So it's a battle of the POVs.
No, I have been through too much today to do a battle. Debate, maybe. You might get a debate, not a battle.
I feel like it would be a very weak debate if it was one.
I would be waving the white flag pretty quickly because I'm just like, I don't have the energy.
Yeah. So we'll jump into first person. Um, for this, we kind of listed out the pros and cons of what that is. And if you don't know what first person is writing from the I, me pronouns of writing. So you are the main character as you're reading it. Um, some of the pros would be it is a lot easier to see a character's logic, meaning you know what they're thinking and you know what they're feeling. It is that internal monologue that you're getting constantly. So it is a little bit easier to gauge what is going on in their head.
Yeah, and if you're someone like me that always has that internal voice going, that is basically what you're reading. Is you're reading that character's internal voice and their observations and their feelings, and it's a fast way to get into a character because you are literally getting thrust into the story. It's not like at the beginning of a movie where you're like slowly zooming in on a scene or anything. You're right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which makes for another point in the pros is it can bring the reader in faster. You can feel like you're a part of the story. You're not watching the movie, you're in the movie or book. You use movie. So that's where my head went.
It's fair.
So it is a faster way of getting your readers into your story and into the character themselves and exploring their world from a first person point of view.
Yeah. And I'm honestly going to let Nicole speak on this one more because while I can write first person POV, it is not my preferred POV.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, for a variety of reasons that I'll get into when we start talking about third person POV. So,
Yeah. Which, to be fair, I'm sure I could write in third person. I just don't think I would enjoy it all that much. Which ultimately, I think that's what it comes down to as a writer is figuring out which point of view you do enjoy writing in and going from there. So, yeah. Um, Also, when you're doing first person, I feel like the tense is important. If you're doing past tense, it's like you're sitting with your friend and you are telling your best friend like what's happening. Like, "Oh my gosh, you won't believe the things that happened to me today." It is that sort of what is the word I'm looking for? Situation, I guess. You're basically telling your bestie a story of what happened. Present tense, you are 100% like in the moment of the things happening to them. So some people like first person past tense. I prefer present. So you're right there in the action and you're getting smacked with it in the face just like my character is.
literally and figuratively.
Yes. Plus, it can also make it a lot easier for the flow of things because you are able to say like the way they're moving with their thoughts, and it can make transitions easier when you are. I feel like it's easier because most people understand how to make transitions when you're talking about yourself. So when you're writing it, it just seems to flow more naturally. Not saying that you can't do it in third person, but I feel like there's a little bit more finesse that needs to be used. Mine would be clunky as all hell, I'll be honest. It would be very choppy, not fun to read. So yeah. That was pretty much the pros that I have. So that was pretty much all I could think of for pros. And as much as I love writing first person, there are cons. You have to maintain consistency with your tone and who is talking. So making sure, especially if you have a character that has an accent or a certain way of speaking, you have to make sure that as you're writing that, you have to stay in that way of processing information for your readers.
And I mean, we're not saying that you don't have to worry about it when you're not writing in first person. You should always try and keep a consistent tone. But when you are writing from a specific character's point of view, the reader is going to notice so much more quickly if you're not writing in a consistent tone. Especially, like you said, if the character has an accent, because we tend to speak in our heads the way we speak out loud. So
Yeah.
you need to keep that in mind when you're writing it. That you are maintaining that character mask
Yeah.
as you write.
Yeah. Also, when it comes to first person, it is harder to get other point of views if you are doing multiple point of views in a story. So, if you're trying to get multiple point of views from different characters, you will then have to change chapters in order to get that second POV. So, that in itself can be pretty hard to do, especially if you're wanting to do something where you're getting multiple characters' reactions to things. At that point, either you're describing what your character is noticing on everybody, or you kind of get lost in the mix in that. So that is where third person and first person, I feel, is like the real big downfall between the two is how easy you can switch from person to person in a story.
Yeah, because again, it's about the consistency. If you are going to start with one character point of view as a first person, that is where you need to keep going until you give the reader some kind of visible break, be it a scene change break or a new chapter break. You need to make sure you have some sort of very visible transition and not just you end the paragraph with one character and start the next paragraph with another character. That's just going to confuse the reader.
Yeah. Also, when you're writing first person, your character knows only what they know. So it is a disadvantage, especially in like things like fantasy, where you don't have that outside narrator saying, hey, this is what's happening around them, or what could be happening somewhere else at the same time that could affect your characters. You don't get that information. It is very much whatever your character knows, whatever is in their head, their thoughts, their feelings, that's it. So, in a way, it can be seen as a pro or a con, depending on what genre you're writing. I feel like fantasy, sci-fi can sometimes be a little bit more of a disadvantage because you don't get that outside scope. Where if you're writing something like horror or mystery, you don't want your readers to know everything the way you would somewhere else. You only want them to know what the character knows. So they get the mystery and the suspense and the horror of it all. So that aspect could be seen either way, but I feel like that could be a con, especially since we are fantasy writers. It's a little harder to convey the bigger picture happenings in the worlds.
Especially if it's in something like Fire Magic or some of the other fantasy authors that I frequently cite, Kristen Britton, Mercedes Lackey, Robert Jordan, and McCaffrey. These are
Mm-hmm.
all larger epic fantasy worlds. So I feel all of those people write in third, all of those authors use third person in their writing. And while I could see the books being just as good in first person, because these are good authors,
Mm-hmm.
it's also harder to see, like you said, see that scope
Yeah.
of the world. And it's also, I'll get into that more when we get to actual third person.
Okay. Well, at that point, I believe that would be the end of first person pros and cons.
Okay. Well, we
So
still have witchy tip.
that would bring us to our witchy tip, which is what I was gonna say. um, which this actually came across my feed. I cannot remember what the video. What's her name? I forgot who made the video.
Poison dart.
Poison, something like that. I will post it. I will link below because she is great. Um, it kind of reminded me of that interpreting signs from deities. Let's get to the point here, Nicole. Get to the point. When you are interpreting signs from deities, not everything is a sign. Particularly when it comes to social media and algorithms. You will have stuff coming across your feed if you watch one video. This has happened. I watched one video of a military dude paintballing with his friends, and now I'm getting flooded with military videos and military humor. Granted, my husband's in the military. I am not. So it just goes to show, you watch one video all the way through, and they will then push that content to you. So when it comes to deities, if you get one random video of, I don't know, Apollo reaching out to you, it likely isn't. And if you watch it all the way through and all of a sudden you start getting flooded with Apollo videos, probably not the sign you think it is. You need to look for the common sense of it all, but also, if there are signs, do your research, our famous tagline, on what their signs typically would be. You know, Hecate, for example, is dogs, or Morgan is crows. If you start noticing different activity or random things happening that out of nowhere should not be happening, you're like, that's odd. That doesn't ever happen around here at this time, or whatever. There are ways to interpret the signs, and don't just go off of one. It should be multiple signs. And then on top of that, do your meditations, your card pulls, asking, hey, is this a sign? You will likely get an answer if it is or not. So, yeah.
Yeah, it comes down to the same as using your common sense before you look for the logical reason before you look for the supernatural one. Because I kind of would also liken this to, like, if you're interpreting a candle flame. If your candle flame is flickering, make sure, do you have a ceiling fan going? Is your window open? Is your door open? Look for those influences before you're like, oh, that's a sign. So apply that same logic to your social media algorithm. It's really easy to be like, oh, that's so-and-so reaching out to me. You just watched 3 videos about Bast.
Yeah.
Just saying. And also remember that certain social medias go across different platforms. So even if you're like, oh, I had nothing to do with this deity on this platform, it's the internet.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff is a cross current.
Yep.
So just because you didn't research this deity on this platform, but you did on that one, it can still cross over. So they're always listening.
Particularly, I will say, it is 100% Facebook and Instagram she's talking about.
Google does it too, though.
Yeah. They're always listening.
They're always listening.
I swear at this point, I could think something and it starts popping up as advertisements and stuff. It's ridiculous.
I know, and it's like you buy one thing and suddenly you buy a toilet lid and they're suddenly like, oh, you want 50 more toilet lids, right? And you're like, no!
Are you renovating? Do you want a new shower or a bathtub too? What about new tile? Like, it is ridiculous the way they just will shove this shit down your throat. So, yeah.
Sorry, I'm a tech person. That's my rant.
No, you're fine. Because I am not a tech person and I notice it. So it's bad. So yeah, use your common sense when interpreting signs from deity. The end.
or anything, really and truly. Not just deities. Anything that might be reaching out to you. So
it is always a good idea to have a healthy dose of skepticism in life.
That is true.
So, there you go. Nuggets of wisdom from Writing with Witches. Be skeptical.
And do your research.
Yes. So, now we can jump back into third person. And I'll let you go with the flow here. And I'll just give my 2 cents in every once in a while.
So kind of building off of the pros and cons we had with first person, in third person, like we said, it is much easier to switch point of views. So you could be describing a scene from one person's point of view, and then suddenly you can switch it over to another person's point of view. and you can get in that same scene all of their reactions and facial expressions and feelings and all of this without having to have 3 chapters of different people describing the same event.
Yeah.
We just had a conversation about that. There was one book where it was like they had the same point of view from 3 different angles, and it was the same event that I don't remember. Anyway,
Yeah, I don't
uh,
remember. I don't remember the book we were talking about, but yes, I remember what you're talking about.
so yeah, it's that way you're not having to describe that same event 3 different times. You can describe it once, and then you can say so and so reacted like this, so and so reacted like that, so and so reacted this way, without having to have those visible scene breaks or scene changes or chapter breaks. So it's very much more, I'm going to say it wrong, omniscient
Yeah.
than uh, the singular point of view. I think one good way to think about this, especially if you're a D&D nerd like us, is third person point of view. You are the dungeon master. You know
Mm-hmm.
what's going on. You're getting all of that information out. You know how all the characters are reacting. You know what each character is doing. First person point of view, you are the player. You
Mm-hmm.
only know what your character knows, and that's all you are supposed to be reacting to.
Yeah.
Um, so that if you want to think about it that way, that is one way to think about it. And it's also just easier to describe a world changing event because
Yeah.
you can kind of ride that wave of whatever happened across different cities, across an ocean, across a continent, without having to constantly switching point of views. You can
Mm-hmm.
see that wildfire going versus, and that's what I was saying earlier about it's the whole scope of the world. Um, you can zoom back out and see how the whole world is reacting rather than having to be in that one singular viewpoint, which for epic fantasy happens a lot.
Yeah. And I would even say the good thing about third person is because you are that omniscient, you're playing God essentially, or the dungeon master role, is when you are in first person, you can only see. Also, you have to think about the scope of what your character is seeing. So they can't see what's going on behind them. Whereas in third person, you're able to tell what's going on in every aspect of, like, maybe a large ballroom or a large battlefield, and you can touch on different spots that is something vital could be happening in. But if you're a first person, if your character can't see it, they can't describe it. So that is also a benefit of third person being omniscient, is you can get down to these little pockets of things happening in these more dynamic scenes and break it down for your readers and really, like, pull everything together, the full scope, which is, I think, a benefit to third person. But again, I couldn't. That'd be hard.
And the other thing about third person to also think about is that while you may be omniscient, you may occasionally be pulling back to get that whole pan out zoom of the whole world. Most of the time, you're going to be following one character. You're going to be giving
Mm-hmm.
their reactions, their emotions, their thoughts, their words, how they're interacting with other characters. It is easier to switch over to another character, but as an author, I actually do still give visible scene breaks and chapter breaks when I do that. Um, there's only like one scene break in Fire Magic, and that was like I hated to do it, but
Yeah.
it was such a visible disconnect between the point of views that it had to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you are still going to you don't want to give the reader everything in this world. You don't want the reader to know everything in this world because that kills any of the suspense, any of the mystery of what's going on in the world. But it does make it easier for you to pull back so that you can describe what's happening before you focus back in on that one character without having to do a complete viewpoint change.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Sounds about right to me. It's like the what's the thing that the pirates use? It's like you can look here,
The
or you're
telescope.
just like, it's like you can zoom in and out. And that is a
Yeah.
good thing to have, especially when, like I said, those dynamic scenes where there's a lot going on and you want to capture more of it. You can pull out or zoom in on anything. So that it makes reading those scenes definitely interesting.
Yeah. And like any point of view, there are some cons to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if depending on the author, it can be harder to get yourself involved in that story. If they're not giving you the emotions and the thought processes of that character, it can be harder to relate to that character. It can be harder to relate to that world. If they're in a more dry historical kind of method of writing, that makes it hard to get into. I read a lot of nonfiction, so I'm used to it and I can kind of put myself into the story a little bit easier because I'm used to that more dry historical tone. Although I will say, nonfiction has gotten a lot better over the years.
I'm sure it has. It doesn't
Yeah,
read like a textbook.
exactly. Um, so if you're not used to inserting yourself into the story, then yeah, it can be harder because it's not as in your face as a first person point of view. It's like using another example, playing a video game. First person shooter like James Bond GoldenEye from Super Nintendo. Yes, I just aged no, Nintendo 64, I'm sorry. I just aged myself there. Um or playing Mario where you can zoom out in the world and see everything. It's another example of to kind of give you an idea of the differences between first person and third person is, when you're in a first person point of view or a first person shooter, if you're not constantly on a swivel, as it were, someone can shoot you in the back and you're like, why did I just die? Kind of
Yep.
thing.
Where if
Versus,
you're third person, yeah.
yeah, then you see that person creeping up behind you to shoot you in the back.
Either way, you're probably getting shot in the back.
But at least you know what happened. And you're not just like,
Yeah,
why did I die? Suddenly
that's
the
true.
screen's just red and you're laying on the ground looking at the ceiling going, what the frick just happened?
Yeah. I didn't think about that. That's a good analogy, though.
Well, because Nicole and I play a lot of Baldur's Gate. And that
Third
to me
person.
that is from a third person point of view because you are not actually seeing through the eyes of your character. You are looking at your character as they move throughout the world. Versus, like I said, James Bond GoldenEye from N64 or Call of Duty is a first person point of view, I
Yeah.
think. I don't play it. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of the first person shooters, so like Fallout, Call of Duty, Battle Battlefield, Battlefields, yeah, something stuff like that.
Uh, I don't play a
I
lot
don't
of first person shooters, so.
know. Yeah, I can't say I do. The only one I would say would be Fallout, and even then, you could put it in third person. So yeah, it's really just up to
Yeah.
your preference in that one. Yeah,
So yeah, that's just one way to think about it. So yeah, you back to the cons of third person. It can be harder to insert yourself into the story because you don't have those I, me pronouns happening that you do in first person.
yeah.
So,
I also think that when it comes to third person, and I will say I don't have this problem with you. I've found that with third person, the internal thought processes and feelings tend to get axed a little bit more and favoring like the world building and the physical of what's going on around the character. So it does zoom you out a little bit more, like we said. So I know that's normally where I have my issues. And then I feel like they tend to be more surface level feelings and thoughts. which in this case, my brain is instantly going to Robert Jordan and the Wheel of Time series. The lack of emotional depth in some of these characters, it could be very shallow. So that's where I know I was the one that put this con on there. I think that is where I know I struggle with. So I like to know every freaking thought and feeling that's running through a character's head, because sometimes there can be that disconnect between thoughts and actions. And I'm also nosy. I want to know everything, every thought. If your freaking ass cheek itches, I want to know if it is in a book. Like,
You learn to send Nicole the screenshots. You don't bother to describe the situation, you just send the screenshot.
I need the receipts, okay? I want to read it and interpret it myself. I'm nosy. I want all the information, which is probably why I am such a fan of first person, because you do get all that extra information. It's me. I'm a Gemini. I can't. It's my downfall. I got to know all the info. I mean, when we were literally on my trip, my sister called me because something happened at her house with the police being at her neighbor's house. And she literally called me. She's like, I got to tell you what happened. Because she knew I would want to know. And she's like, I had to tell someone and I knew you'd be interested in listening. So I'm going to spill the tea. So yeah, even when it has nothing to do with affecting me, I'm getting the tea. So yeah, that's where I feel like the disconnect for me personally is with third person. I want to know everything.
And kind of jumping back a little bit to what you were saying earlier about the world building, in my perspective, it's easier to do world building in third person point of view versus first person point of view. And I say this because, well, yes, it can get a little dry, but if you're going to have an exposition dump, it's a lot easier to condense that into a single paragraph of exposition dump from a third person point of view versus listening to a lecture from one of your characters, especially if you're trying to write natural dialogue. I did a couple of exposition dumps in Fire Magic because it was necessary to understand this world. And there were a couple that were characters talking, but I was also trying to make it more of a conversation than just a lecture. But it does make it harder to get through as an author.
Yeah.
Because you're having to, instead of just spilling it all out into one paragraph, if you're doing it in a speech format, dialogue format, you're having to make sure you have all of those so-and-so said, so-and-so said, so-and-so said. And if you're a good author, you're not just doing that, you're also putting in gestures and movement and how they said it and what the room was like that they said. So if you're doing an exposition dump and you're doing it as a dialogue, it turns into 2 pages versus a paragraph if you're just dropping it in the third person.
That's where the finesse comes in for the first person, is being able to give these exposition dumps.
Okay.
We're going on an expedition, guys. Exposition dumps in world building in a way that doesn't feel, well, I said this is going to be information, blah, 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 blah. Oh, really? Tell me more, blah, 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 blah. You don't want that. There's a way of trying to explain things to characters, or characters explaining to each other, that takes a little bit of finesse in that aspect, where in third person, like you said, it is much easier. You could just, boom, 1 paragraph and you're done. And they get the scope of the world building. So there's definitely, like you said, the pros and cons of both. So.
And that kind of exposition dump, you could say you could do that from first person point of view, but it also depends on how familiar a character is with that world. Drawing on your books with Amy and dealing with the Order, she couldn't have given us that exposition dump because she's just learning about it. Jensen or Leo or Charles could and did give us these exposition dumps when they were needed through that first person point of view. But in a third person point of view, we wouldn't have had to wait for a chapter from that person in order to understand why this event is happening or why it happened or what the history of this is.
Yeah. Or like why a certain thing is significant. So like with for example, in what was it? I want to say it was Unleashed. When they are in the demon world, there were certain things that, Jensen already knew, and eventually Amy's like, well, what the fuck is going on? And he had to be like, okay, let me sit down and tell you. You don't have to wait for those moments to come up in dialogue where your character is now confronted with a situation and you're like, okay, well, she doesn't know this, so now I have to tell them, and now the readers have to figure it out. But like you said, if it was beforehand, your readers are kind of already get that knowledge before your character does. So they kind of have an inside scope of, well, this is significant because now when this happens, they already know ahead of time on why a certain thing would be significant or a situation or whatever because of how that world works. So it's more so, do you get the information up front beforehand so that when that situation happens, you understand it at a more knowledgeable level, or are you learning just along with the character and you get that information when it's needed if you're doing it in a way that is delivering it, not just exposition dump, and it's your characters delivering information. I hope that made sense. My brain is really struggling to... Okay. I'm like, I hope this is making sense.
The other thing to think about is how you're delivering that story. The other thing is also, like you said, when is this information necessary for the story? What you can also do in both first and third person is just going to, that perspective is going to depend on how this is happening, is using the foreshadowing. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to use foreshadowing in just one or the other. It can definitely happen in both. If you're in first person and your character is kind of clueless, you may not have them notice all of these little signs.
Yeah.
But if you're in third person, you can have those signs be noticed because you have to keep it inconsistent with that character's personality and tone. And it's like I was saying earlier, it can be in third person. If you are not clear on whose perspective you're talking from, it can be real easy to mix up the viewpoint. Mm-hmm. If the name or some kind of trait delineating which character you're viewing this story from, even though it's third person, you still tend to be limited in scope of how you're telling the story because you don't want to just tell it like the dungeon master or god, because that kind of ruins the mystery of the story. Mm-hmm. You need to make sure that it's clear whose perspective you're telling this from. Like I said, using the name, using some kind of descriptor, making sure you have a scene change break in or chapter break in there. That said, sometimes you do, as in third person, want the perspective to be obscured, unreliable. You don't want to tell the reader whose perspective this is coming from because it comes up later in the book.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a mystery that comes up later in the book. So you can do that in first person too. It's just a little harder, I think, because you're suddenly thrown from your body switching from one to the other. Yeah. And you're like, wait, who was I just with? Versus in third person, you're expected to be the little omniscient and just kind of hovering over someone's shoulder versus being actually in from their eyes.
Yeah. On the point with the switching up and the viewpoints is, like you said, you got to be careful because if you switch from one person to the next without giving physical cues or dropping names or, their dialogue, it can get pretty confusing pretty fast. I've read books where I've read things and I'm like, okay, well, who's saying this? Who's doing what? Because there was a lack of direction or name dropping or just the physical cues of what's going on around them. So if you are writing in third person, just be sure that you are giving those physical tells, the, you know, names and their pronouns or whatever. Because sometimes I've noticed you'll get a lot of he, she, he, and but you're like, which he, which she. So just be clear on who you're talking about. But also, don't use their name every time you talk about them either. Because I have read third person where they're like, literally, your character could be water bottle. I don't know. Water bottle does this. Water bottle goes here. Water bottle is doing this. Water bottle's thought is this. And it's like, okay, we could use a little more pronouns now. So you don't want to go one extreme to the other either in terms of third person. So just keep that in mind when you are writing in your third person.
I think that's all we had for third person. I did want to touch on the third traditional point of view, and that is second person point of view. Mm-hmm. These are the point of views that use the he. Wow, that's third person. These are the point of views that use you as a pronoun, and 9 times out of 10 you're going to be seeing this in nonfiction, because these are self-help books, these are cookbooks, these are some kind of directional books. The few times you're going to see it in fiction, the best example that I can that comes to mind is the choose your own adventure books from the 90s. Mm-hmm. And those are hard to write. I tried to write one time, and if you've never read a choose your own adventure book and you like interactive video games, I highly suggest you go pick up a choose your own adventure just for the heck of it. They're a lot of fun to read. They are hard as heck to write. I don't know how those authors churned those things out like they did, but it was crazy. Choose your own adventure, in case you don't know, is basically it's you are the main character, and at the end of a chapter you have a choice to make on which path you're going to go down, and then it sends you to, okay, if you make this choice, go to page such and such. If you make that choice, go to page such and such. And you basically are jumping back and forth and around in the book. If you've never read one, they are fun. They are like an interactive video game, like Baldur's Gate, honestly. It's just in book format.
Yeah. I actually have seen that there's been a few newer ones that have come out. I couldn't tell you the name of them, but my husband has come across them and he was like, oh, that's interesting. Me, I was like, that sounds confusing. Not it's that I fun. Couldn't do it, but if you're not in that mindset, I feel like that could get real confusing real fast. Yeah. So know what you're going into if you get those. But yeah, I can imagine that would be incredibly difficult to write.
I tried to write one when I was younger, and I could probably do it now, but it'd be hard. Like, yeah, just thinking about it, I have to give all the kudos to those story writers at Baldur's Gate, man, because they're incredible. It's like almost infinite storylines with that, and I know it's not, that it can't be, but it feels like it, man.
Yeah.
That is an intricate web they wove.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just us talking about our run-throughs. Oh, you did that? There's no way. How did you do that? So it just cracks me up, the different scenarios that we have seen with just me, you, Alex, and even my husband. I'm just like, how did you get that scene? What did you click? What did you choose? Because I never in a million years got that. And trust me, I've played quite a few runs of Baldur's Gate. It's kind of ridiculous. So when you guys say you've gotten something different, I was like, how did you get that? I want to know, because what? I've never seen that before. So yeah, I can only imagine the different scenarios that they have come up with writing that. Oh my gosh. That's a lot.
Man, taking all of that script and putting it down in a choose your own adventure book, that'd be a thick ass book, but I'd read it.
Beefy. And not only that, but if you really think about it, and if it is your choices, they are not only writing one storyline, they're writing multiples based off of the choices that you're making. That's crazy to think about. That's
But
nuts.
it be
It's amazing.
if you could pull it off,
Oh, yeah.
it's epic.
That would be so cool. But that's nuts. The amount of work. That's good for
I mean,
them.
that's why years go into these games, to be fair.
Yeah. That's
I mean,
true.
most people say it is the animation, and it absolutely is. That animation and rendering does take a lot of time in the artwork, but just
There's
as
a lot
much
of
time
planning.
goes into writing that story.
Yeah. The planning and the writing everything out and story mapping, that's a lot. It takes a lot of work.
Hmm.
Brilliant.
Anyway,
Our little side tangent of Baldur's Gate 3. Can you tell it's on the mind? We're like, I want to play Baldur's Gate.
I do kind of want to play Baldur's Gate. I probably will later
When do we not want to play Baldur's Gate is the real question.
when I'm really tired.
Yeah, then sleep does sound better. So, yeah, I believe that would be it. So that would bring us to book reviews. And I have been reading, but I haven't finished anything as of right now. So, again, I am book reviewless.
You're reviewless.
I am
No.
reviewless. Well, no, so okay, to be fair, I actually did finish 2 books within this last week. But
You did.
one of them we reviewed on a podcast episode, and the second one you've already reviewed. So, it doesn't make sense for me to review it. Although that I will say I did read Tusk Love, loved it, and I hope there's a sequel because it was really good and it was very cute and the spice was spicing and I loved it. So, there's my little review of Tusk Love. You're frozen again. There we go.
Yeah. My internet hates me tonight. There has been tech issues abounding tonight, so I apologize to anyone that's actually watching this and me freezing constantly.
You know, sometimes you just got to go with the flow, and sometimes the flow is a little janky. So,
Yes.
so yeah.
So I do have a book to review. And it actually kind of touches on something that I mentioned earlier about nonfiction.
Yes.
And probably a lot of you have heard of this because it has been made into a movie. But I read Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann. Subtitle, just so you know what it's about, The Osage Murderers and the Birth of the FBI. So in the 1920s is when this series of events is happening. And it's basically the Osage tribe at that time had just started tapping into the oil reserves under their reservation. And they were supposedly immensely rich because of this. There are other circumstances that I'm not going to go into more detail about and why they actually weren't rich. That is a misconception that is clarified in this book later. Mm-hmm. But what starts happening is in order to get the profit from all these oil fields, someone starts killing the members of the Osage tribe.
Oh, geez.
You also have to remember that the Native American tribes at this point are still have gotten smaller because of all of the persecution and forcing them onto reservations and straight up murdering them that happened during the Wild West time period. So there weren't a lot of the Osage tribe at this time. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to give numbers because I don't remember exactly numbers, but there was enough people killed that it affected everyone in the tribe. Mm-hmm. There was enough people killed.
Yeah.
So what this book goes through is the investigations, both failed and successful, that happened with the Osage murderers, as well as this ties into kind of the creation of the FBI with J. Edgar Hoover. You don't get a lot of perspective on Hoover, which I was just fine with because I was not interested in Hoover. I was interested in the murders that was happening.
Yeah.
But it does come up, and it has been made into a movie. I have not personally watched the movie, so I couldn't tell you how accurate it is to the book. I hope it would be fairly accurate because it is a nonfiction book. I mean, these are actual events that happened.
Yeah.
So if you're not accurate, that's kind of shitty to people that have already been shit upon many times. So,
Yeah.
um, if you like nonfiction, it is really well written. It gives you the receipts. It tells you who everyone is. It gives you a reason to understand motives, and who people are. And I also liked he did include quite a few pictures. So, like, this is Tom White, the guy that eventually ended up succeeding on the investigation on what was happening.
Oh, nice.
So there are lots of nice pictures. And it just really, I like the pictures because it does remind me these are real people. This is not a fiction book. And the writing alone does that, but it does make it easier to remember when you're like, that's not a piece of art. That is an actual photograph.
Yeah.
This was a real person that went through this and dealt with this. So,
Yeah.
um, it's a fascinating story. It's sad. It's so sad because he also does talk about the modern implications of the that have rippled outward from this through the Osage tribe and the people that he's talked to about it. Because I mean, really and truly, it wasn't that long ago in the
Yeah.
20s. I mean, only 100 years, which is a few generations.
Yeah.
So, great grandfathers at this point,
Yep.
which is not that long if you
No.
think about it. So, yeah, if you like nonfiction, if you're interested, if a murder mystery sounds interesting to you, because that's kind of what this is, it also goes into conspiracy theory territory. Killers of the Flower Moon by David Graham.
Nice.
And also, as a forewarning, if you don't skip these book reviews, be prepared for a lot of World War II nonfiction coming up. I'm researching women in World War II, and that stack is only 2/3. What you can see is only 2/3 of what is currently stacked up on my dresser. So, yeah, I'm going to have a lot of that.
She went a little bananas with the library checkouts.
Yeah, I did not buy all of those.
No, libraries use them.
Yep.
Um, well, that would bring us to the end of this episode. You can find us at writingwithwitches.com. You can email us at writingwithwitches@gmail.com. We are on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Blue Sky, and TikTok. Although TikTok has been, would you so sorry, my child. TikTok hates us. We haven't been using it. You can find me at all the aforementioned places, as well as NicoleAuthor.com. And we also have a Discord server. I'm so sorry. She really threw me off. We have a Discord server as well as Writing with Witches, and I also have one. Everything will be linked down below because I have done screwed this up. So if you need to find us anywhere, it's all linked below in the description. Go ahead.
You're going to find me as Leona Urbanski on Facebook and Instagram, or you can go to my website, leonaurbanskiauthor.com, or you can sign up for my Substack at leonaurbanskiauthor.substack.com. You can also find both of us at mythweaverbooks.com, where you'll be able to purchase our books, our merch, see what's going on in the Mythweavers publishing world, what books are coming out, sign up for the newsletter. Mythweavers is on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Our social media manager has been going ham lately, so go have fun watching her videos.
They've been good. They're good ones.
They have been good.
Also,
and then I think that just leaves...
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say what's for the next episode is all I was going to say.
Oh, I don't even know what the next episode is.
I do. You go ahead, though.
I was just going to say, also, when it comes to Mythweavers, you said sign up for the newsletter. But also, if you would like to sign up to be an ARC reader for any coming books in the future, you can also sign up there as well. So you would be one of the first people to get dibs on being an ARC reader. So go sign up, and our newsletter, because I'm sure once we start getting people actually signing up, we will be sending out newsletters about what's to come. So, yeah. Next episode.
Oh, and we will have a short story out for May. We are picking that back up again. So end of May, which is the 31st,
So
we will have a short story out.
A few days from now. 6 days, I
yes.
think, if I
something like that
correctly. My mouth is not great right now. It is late at night. So, yeah.
Next episode is common mistakes in writing women.
Oh, that's going to be fun.
That's
going to be real fun.
She's looking forward to this one already, folks.
Oh, I'm going to ream some authors. No, I'm just kidding. But I will be using their examples.
Yes. Both bad and good.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, thank you all for listening and or watching. We hope you have a wonderful week, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.